They bullied the quiet boy. Big mistake. He was a trained fighter. How does a boy who barely speaks take down 3 trained athletes in under 30 seconds and walk away like nothing happened? What kind of strength hides behind eyes that never meet yours, behind a silence so heavy it makes you nervous? At Westdale High, everyone thought Eli Ramirez was just another ghost floating through the hallways. Invisible, harmless, forgettable. They laughed, they shoved, they filmed. And then, one day, he struck. No rage, no warning, no wasted movement, just precise, controlled violence that left even the loudest mouths speechless. And that was just the beginning. What would you do if the quietest kid in school suddenly became the most feared? At Westdale High, no one really noticed Eli Ramirez. 16 years old, pale skin, dark circles under his eyes, always wrapped in those same oversized hoodies as if trying to disappear. He moved like a ghost in the hallways. No friends, no words, no eye contact. Just a shadow among lockers and loud teenagers. If you blinked, you'd miss him. To most students, Eli was just weird. To the popular kids, especially Trent, the arrogant captain of the wrestling team, Eli was something even better, a target. It started on Eli's second week. A spilled tray in the cafeteria, laughter, a foot that just happened to trip him. Eli didn't even look up. He just gathered his food from the floor, face red, and walked off in silence. That silence only made it worse. Trent and his loudmouth sidekick Zach thought it was hilarious. "Mute boy doesn't even fight back," Zach said once, loud enough for everyone to hear. After that, the games began. Books tossed into trash cans, shoves in the hallway, snickers every time Eli passed by. And Eli, he said nothing, not a word. But what no one realized was that Eli wasn't ignoring them out of fear. He was calculating. Eli didn't talk about his past, not to teachers, not to classmates. Not even when they cornered him behind the gym one afternoon, shoving him around while Zach pulled out his phone and hit record. The video was posted online that same evening, captioned with the hashtag Silent Loser. It spread fast. Laughter echoed in the hallways the next day. Even kids who didn't know Eli now recognized him as that weird, quiet kid who got pushed around and didn't even try to fight back. And still, silence. No calls to his parents, no complaints to the principal, no angry outbursts. Just the same blank expression, the same slouched posture, the same silence that seemed to scream, "I'm not worth your time." But that silence, it was learned. At home, Eli's world was completely different. His father, Mateo Ramirez, wasn't just a strict single parent, he was a former Special Forces operative, a man shaped by war, strategy, and discipline. And since Eli was just a boy, his father had trained him in silence, in stillness, in strength. Every morning before school, they sparred in the backyard. Boxing, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, Muay Thai. Not for sport, not for trophies, but for survival. His father's rule was simple. Only use what I taught you when there's no other choice. Never to impress, never to hurt. Eli took that rule to heart. Maybe too much. Because now he stood surrounded by enemies and still held back. But how long could a storm stay silent before it finally struck? The bullying didn't stop. It evolved. Now it wasn't just shoves and laughs, it was isolation. Doors closing when Eli approached. Notes left in his locker saying, "Go back to the cave you crawled out of." One day, someone smeared ketchup all over his locker with the words, "Freak," scrawled in bold letters. Teachers noticed but said nothing. A few looked uncomfortable, others just turned away. Maybe they thought Eli was strange. Maybe they thought he liked being alone. Or maybe they just didn't want to get involved. It was during the school's fall pep rally that things reached the edge. Everyone was gathered in the gym, music blasting, students cheering, the wrestling teams showing off in their varsity jackets. Trent, of course, was at the center of it all. He basked in the spotlight, laughing with Zach and nodding at his adoring fans. Then he spotted Eli, sitting alone on the top row of the bleachers. No one knew what made Trent do it. Maybe boredom, maybe cruelty, maybe just habit. He walked up the bleachers with Zach behind him and called out, loud enough to quiet the room, "Hey, it's our favorite ghost. Let's give him a warm welcome." Before Eli could move, Trent yanked his hoodie from behind, hard, pulling it off completely and tossing it down the bleachers. Gasps echoed through the gym, because beneath the hoodie, Eli's arms and back were marked with deep, faded scars, long, twisted reminders of pain, of something dark in his past that no one dared to speak of. For a second, the whole gym fell silent. Then Zach laughed. "Yo, what is that? Did a cat scratch you up, bro?" People started whispering. Others just stared. Eli stood there, frozen, breathing hard, but not saying a word. His fists clenched, not in rage, in restraint. He picked up his hoodie without looking at anyone. He walked out of the gym in complete silence. But something had shifted. Not outside, inside him, and the next morning he wouldn't walk the same. That night Eli didn't sleep. He sat on the floor of his bedroom, hoodie clutched in his lap, staring at the scars on his arms, the ones he never wanted anyone to see. Each one had a story, some from accidents, others from the past his father never talked about. But most were reminders of who he used to be and who he swore he'd never become. Downstairs, his father was cleaning his gear. Eli could hear the soft click of metal, the steady rhythm of a man who never let his guard down. Eli walked into the room. Mateo looked up, surprised. "Couldn't sleep." Eli didn't answer. He just said one thing, "I need to train." For the next 2 hours, father and son moved in silence. Kicks, counters, takedowns. Sweat dripped, muscles ached, but Eli didn't stop. And when the sun began to rise, his father finally spoke. "You sure about this?" Eli nodded. His father looked him in the eyes and said softly, "Then don't fight angry, fight clean, fight smart. And when it's over, walk away." The next morning at school, Eli didn't wear his hoodie. He wore a plain black t-shirt. His scars were visible, his eyes steady. People noticed. Whispers followed him down the hallway, some curious, some nervous. Trent noticed too. He smirked when he saw Eli. "Look who finally found a backbone." Eli didn't flinch. At lunch, Zach threw an empty soda can at his back. It bounced off. Eli didn't even turn around, but his silence now felt different. It wasn't the silence of fear. It was the silence before something breaks, and the break was coming fast. The next day after school, it happened. The courtyard behind the gym was empty, or so Trent thought. He had Zach and 2 other guys with him. Eli was walking alone, backpack slung over one shoulder. They called out to him, laughing, pretending it was just another prank. But this time Eli stopped. He turned, and he looked them straight in the eyes for the first time. Something in that gaze made Zach pause. "You finally gonna cry, freak?" he muttered, less sure of himself now. Eli didn't answer. Trent stepped forward and shoved him hard. Eli moved with no hesitation. In one fluid motion, he sidestepped the push, grabbed Trent's arm, and used his own momentum to flip him hard onto the pavement. Zach's mouth dropped. "What the?" He rushed in. Eli ducked low, swept Zach's legs, and sent him crashing down, gasping for air. The other 2 guys hesitated, confused. Eli didn't give them a chance. A swift kick to the ribs, a calculated elbow to the shoulder. He didn't strike with anger. He struck with precision, economy, and control. Not a single wasted move. It was over in under 30 seconds. Trent groaned on the ground, clutching his side. Zach crawled back, wide-eyed, phone in hand, now recording the very scene he never expected to see. Eli stood tall, breathing evenly, not a drop of sweat on his face. And for the first time, the school saw who he really was. Not a victim, not a freak, but a fighter who had chosen, until that moment, not to fight. The video hit social media that evening. By morning, it had gone viral. The fallout was immediate. Trent was suspended for repeated harassment. Zach, red-faced and stumbling over his words, posted a public apology on his social media. "I didn't know, man. I didn't know he could do that. I didn't know he went through all that." But it wasn't about what Eli could do. It was about what he chose not to do until he had no other choice. The principal called Eli into her office, expecting the usual silence. Instead, Eli looked her in the eye and calmly explained everything. The bullying, the harassment, the videos, the silence he endured. Not once did he raise his voice. He didn't ask for sympathy. He simply told the truth. She didn't punish him. She thanked him. Word spread quickly. Students who once laughed behind his back now avoided his eyes. Some whispered apologies in the hallway. Others sat next to him at lunch, unsure how to say what they needed to. But Eli didn't seek revenge. He didn't want followers. He just wanted peace. And strangely, for the first time, he got it. He still wore his scars. He still walked the halls alone. But now, no one saw him as weak. They saw him as something else, something more powerful than fear, louder than noise. They saw him as a reminder that silence isn't always submission. Sometimes silence is strength waiting for its moment to speak. So, what do you think? Have you ever judged someone too quickly or been underestimated for staying quiet? Tell us in the comments. Your story might help someone find their voice too. And remember, not all battles are fought with fists. Some are won with patience, discipline, and knowing exactly when to stand up.